The message came late in the evening, just as the small apartment had finally grown quiet. Daniel had just finished washing the last dish when his phone buzzed on the counter. For a moment, he ignored it, assuming it was another work notification or a reminder bill he couldn't pay yet. But when he glanced at the screen and saw his younger brother's name, he sighed and picked it up. The message was simple, almost careless. "Bro, I messed up. I've got a blind date tonight and I can't make it. Can you go instead? Just sit there for a bit so she's not stood up." Daniel stared at the screen longer than he should have. It sounded ridiculous. He was a single father with a tired face, worn-out shoes, and a life that revolved around work shifts and bedtime stories. Blind dates belonged to people who had time for themselves, people who weren't rushing home every evening to help a little girl with homework. But something about the thought of a stranger sitting alone at a restaurant, waiting for someone who would never show up, bothered him deeply. After a long pause, Daniel typed a short reply, "Fine, just send me the place." Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of ordinary people doing the right thing, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us how powerful small choices can be. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Daniel arrived at the restaurant 20 minutes later than planned. The place was small but elegant, glowing with warm yellow lights that reflected softly off the glass windows. It was the kind of place he hadn't stepped into for years. For a moment, he stood outside adjusting the sleeves of his old button-up shirt, wondering if this was a terrible idea. He almost turned around, but then he thought of the woman who might still be waiting inside, checking the door every few seconds, and he forced himself to step through the entrance. The hostess pointed him toward a quiet table near the back, and there she was. The woman sat calmly with a glass of water in front of her, her posture straight but relaxed, her expression thoughtful rather than impatient. She wasn't scrolling through her phone or looking irritated like most people would be after waiting this long. Instead, she looked as if she were quietly observing the world around her. When Daniel approached the table, his heart began beating faster. This was the moment he had dreaded, the awkward explanation. He cleared his throat and sat down, immediately apologizing and explaining the truth about his brother. He expected annoyance or disappointment, but instead the woman simply nodded, as if she had expected something unusual from the start. Her name was Claire. She listened carefully as Daniel explained the situation, and then something about her expression softened. She didn't seem offended at all. In fact, she seemed strangely curious about him. The conversation that followed was simple at first. They spoke about ordinary things, work, weather, favorite foods. Daniel found himself relaxing slightly, surprised by how easy it was to talk to her. Claire asked thoughtful questions and listened closely to his answers. There was something calm and grounded about her presence. But then, halfway through their meal, Claire asked a quiet question that changed everything. She looked at him for a long moment and gently asked how long he had been raising his daughter alone. Daniel froze. He hadn't mentioned his daughter yet, not once. The words caught in his throat as confusion washed over him. He asked her how she knew about that. Claire didn't answer right away. Instead, she simply looked at him with a kind expression and said she could see it in his eyes. Daniel didn't understand what she meant at first, but Claire explained slowly, almost carefully. She had spent years working as a child psychologist, meeting countless parents who carried the invisible weight of raising children on their own. According to her, those parents had a certain look about them, a mixture of exhaustion, determination, and quiet love that never completely left their faces. Daniel felt something shift inside his chest when she said that. It was the first time anyone had recognized that part of his life without him explaining it. For years, Daniel had lived in survival mode. After his wife passed away suddenly from a heart condition, everything had changed overnight. One day he had been a husband and a father sharing responsibilities. The next day he had been a grieving man holding a crying 3-year-old child, wondering how he was supposed to keep their world from falling apart. He had taken every job he could find. Construction, delivery driving, warehouse shifts, anything that paid enough to keep food on the table and the lights on. His life had become a constant balancing act between exhaustion and responsibility. Nights out, hobbies, and relationships had quietly disappeared from his life. And yet somehow, sitting across from this stranger, Daniel found himself opening up in a way he hadn't expected. He told Claire about the long nights when his daughter was sick, about the mornings when he woke up before sunrise to prepare her breakfast before work, about the fear that he was never doing enough. Claire listened without interrupting. Her expression never showed pity, only deep understanding. The evening continued in a way Daniel hadn't anticipated. What had started as an awkward favor for his brother slowly turned into one of the most meaningful conversations he had experienced in years. Claire shared parts of her own life too. She explained that she had spent years studying families and human resilience, but after losing her own father, she had taken time away from her career to reconnect with the things that truly mattered. She said life had a strange way of bringing people together exactly when they needed it most. By the time dessert arrived, Daniel realized something surprising. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. For so long, the world had treated him as just another tired worker rushing through life. But Claire saw him differently. She saw the sacrifices, the courage, and the quiet love that shaped his everyday decisions. And then Claire asked another gentle question. She asked what his daughter's name was. When Daniel said the name Lily, his voice softened without him realizing it. He described how Lily loved drawing pictures of animals, how she believed every stray cat in the neighborhood secretly belonged to her, and how she insisted on bedtime stories even when he was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open. Claire smiled as she listened, and something about that smile made Daniel feel lighter. The night eventually came to an end. Daniel walked Claire outside the restaurant, unsure what to say next. Technically, the date had never really been meant for him. It had started as a small favor, nothing more. But before they parted ways, Claire surprised him once again. She thanked him for showing up, not just for the date, but for his daughter, for his family, and for continuing to move forward even when life had been painfully unfair. Those words stayed with Daniel long after he returned home. Later that night, he sat beside Lily's bed as she slept peacefully under her blanket, her tiny hand curled around her favorite stuffed rabbit. Watching her breathe slowly in the soft glow of the nightlight, Daniel felt something warm rise in his chest. For years, he had believed his life was just about surviving day after day. But tonight had reminded him that maybe his story wasn't just about struggle. Maybe it was also about strength. Days passed, and Daniel assumed he would never see Claire again. But one afternoon, while picking Lily up from school, he heard a familiar voice behind him. When he turned around, Claire was standing there near the playground gate. It turned out that she had recently started volunteering at the community center next door, helping children with emotional support and mentoring programs. She had recognized Lily from the stories Daniel had shared. The moment Lily met Claire, something magical happened. Within minutes, they were laughing together as Lily excitedly showed her a drawing of a purple elephant wearing sunglasses. Watching the two of them interact filled Daniel with an emotion he hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Claire didn't try to step into their lives or change anything overnight. She simply became someone who showed up, someone who listened, encouraged, and supported. Over time, Daniel realized that the quiet question Claire had asked that night had opened a door neither of them expected. A door to friendship, healing, and maybe even something more. And sometimes the most life-changing moments don't arrive with grand announcements or dramatic events. Sometimes they begin with a small act of kindness. Sometimes they begin when someone chooses not to let a stranger sit alone. And sometimes everything changes because one person sees the quiet strength hidden in another person's tired eyes. Before the story ends, here's a special request for you. In the comments below, tell us the name of someone who has shown quiet strength or kindness in your life. Let's take a moment to honor the everyday heroes around us. Months later, Daniel stood once again outside that same restaurant. But this time, he wasn't nervous or unsure. Inside, Lily was laughing with Claire as they waited at the table. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something he thought he had lost forever, a sense of possibility. Because life has a strange way of rewriting our stories when we least expect it. And sometimes, the most important chapters begin with a simple choice, to show up. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us how powerful kindness can be. Because somewhere out there, someone might be one small act of kindness away from a completely different future.